A wolf collapsed at her cabin door. She didn't know its heartbeat matched the crown's prophecy. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. Snow drifted across the ridge like powdered glass as night pressed against the little cabin tucked deep in the pines. Elena Ward sat by the stove, listening to the wind scrape the shutters, a soft metallic hiss with every push. It was the kind of cold that slipped under doors and through wool, the kind that made silence feel heavier. Then came the thud. Not loud, not sharp, just a weight collapsing onto her porch, enough to rattle the loose lantern hook outside. Elena froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She wasn't expecting visitors. Not out here, not miles from the nearest road. The wind eased, letting her hear something else, a faint, uneven sound, like a heartbeat fighting through layers of snow. She reached for her coat, hands trembling as she pulled it on. The doorknob was icy against her palm as she cracked the door open. Her lantern spilled warm light across the porch and onto a massive white wolf lying motionless at her feet. Its fur was matted with frost, not blood, thank God, but the creature was shaking hard, ribs rising shallow beneath its thick coat. Steam curled from its body, warm breath hitting the cold air in soft pulses. Its heartbeat, she could hear it, somehow, steady but strange, almost patterned, like a rhythm tapping against her ears. Elena whispered, "Hey, easy." Her voice quivered, the sound barely a thread. The wolf didn't lift its head, but one ear twitched weakly, as if acknowledging her presence. She should go back inside. She should shut the door. Every survival instinct she'd learned since moving into these woods said not to drag a wild animal into her home. But the cold was tightening its grip around the creature. It wouldn't last an hour out here. She knelt slowly, feeling the bite of the cold through her jeans, and reached out. Her fingers brushed the wolf's fur, shockingly warm, almost feverish. The creature let out a soft, exhausted rumble, not hostile, not warning, just tired. "You're freezing," she murmured. "I can't leave you out here." With effort that made her arms shake, she pulled the wolf toward the doorway, inch by inch over the wooden boards. The lantern light flickered across its silver-tipped fur as she dragged it inside, the warmth of the cabin brushing against its shivering form. The door clicked shut behind them, sealing out the wind. Inside, the wolf lay still beside the stove, eyes half open, catching the firelight in a dull glimmer. Elena knelt beside it, breath unsteady, her pulse matching the strange cadence of its own without realizing it. The cabin was quiet except for the low crackle of wood and the faint, rhythmic thrum coming from the creature at her feet, a heartbeat unlike any she'd ever heard. The wolf lay close to the stove, its breath fogging gently in the warm air, while Elena knelt beside it, unsure if she was comforting the creature or steadying her own nerves. The storm pressed against the cabin walls, a low hum threading through the wood like a distant warning. She adjusted the old wool blanket she had draped over the animal, smoothing it along its side. Its fur radiated heat, more than any animal she had ever touched, almost like standing near a running engine. The rhythm of its heartbeat brushed her senses again, a soft, steady pattern that made her chest tighten with a strange familiarity. She whispered, "You are safe. Just rest." The wolf did not open its eyes, but its breathing eased, each inhale deeper than the last. Elena reached for a bowl, filling it with warm water from the kettle. Her hands shook slightly as she slid it near the wolf's muzzle. "If you can drink, it might help." The creature shifted, slow and heavy, then lowered its head toward the bowl. The sound of its tongue touching the water was soft, almost delicate, and something inside her unclenched at the sight. A wild animal trusting her, even for a moment, felt unreal. She leaned back, her spine touching the edge of the stove for warmth. "Where did you come from?" she murmured. "You are too big to be from around here. Too warm." She paused. The cabin light caught a faint shimmer along the wolf's flank, a glow just beneath the fur like threads of silver reacting to the heat. She blinked, thinking it was fatigue playing tricks on her. It had been a long winter, and loneliness had a way of making shadows look like stories. Still, the shimmer lingered before fading again. The wolf exhaled, a soft huff, almost as if it understood her confusion. Elena rubbed her palms against her knees. "I should call someone," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. There was no one nearby, no neighbor within miles, no ranger station reachable in this weather. It was just her and this strange creature breathing on her floor. Another gust hit the cabin. Snow hissed along the windows. The lantern on the counter flickered once, then steadied. The wolf's ear twitched, its attention sharpening for a moment, as if listening to something beyond the storm. Elena frowned. "Do you hear something?" The animal lifted its head slightly, nose angled toward the door, but then it slumped again, exhausted. She touched its shoulder gently. Its fur was soft and warm beneath her palm, and the moment she made contact, the heartbeat rhythm brushed against her again, a quiet pulse echoing inside her chest like a second beat aligning with her own. She pulled her hand back, startled. The sensation faded the instant she lost contact. "That is impossible," she whispered, pressing her fingers to her sternum. Her pulse thudded in its usual steady pattern, yet for one strange moment, she had felt two rhythms overlapping. The wolf let out a soft sound, not a growl, not a whine, something almost like reassurance. She drew a slow breath, steadier this time. "All right," she said quietly. "You stay here. I will keep the fire going. Whatever you are, we will figure this out." She reached for another log, placing it into the stove, watching the flames catch and spill warm light across the room. Behind her, the wolf shifted again, its silver-tipped fur glowing faintly in the firelight, as if responding to the warmth. And though the storm raged outside, the cabin felt smaller, calmer, bound by the shared heartbeat she could not yet understand. The fire settled into a steady glow, its warmth softening the sharp edges of the storm that continued to press against the cabin. Elena sat on the floor, beside the wolf, her back against the side of the old sofa, listening to the rhythm of its breathing. The creature seemed calmer now, its chest rising with more strength, its silver-tipped fur flickering faintly in the firelight, as if holding its own quiet glow. She wrapped her arms around her knees, unsure if she was guarding the wolf or guarding herself from the questions gathering in her mind. Every so often, the animal's ear twitched or its paw shifted slightly against the blanket, signs that it was not unconscious anymore, but resting, aware in a distant way. Elena spoke softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "You scare me out there. I thought you were gone." The wolf did not move, but a low exhale slipped from its nose, steady and warm. The rhythm of that breath drew her attention again to its heartbeat. Even from a few feet away, she could sense it, strange and steady, pulsing like a melodic code she instinctively understood without knowing why. She rubbed her forearm, trying to shake off the lingering sensation. She stood carefully and moved to the counter to heat more water. The wind rattled the window frame, but the storm was weakening. The sky would likely clear by morning. She filled another bowl, this time mixing warm water with a bit of broth. "Maybe you will take this," she murmured. She carried the bowl slowly toward the wolf, sliding it near its muzzle. The creature lifted its head slightly, its eyes half open now. They were not the cold yellow she had expected from a wild animal. Instead, they were pale and luminous, reflecting the firelight with an odd clarity that made her breath hitch. "Hey there," she whispered, her tone softening. The wolf held her gaze for a long moment, and in that silence something shifted inside the room. It was as if the cabin itself paused, the crackle of fire stretching into a thin, suspended note. Then the creature lowered its head again and touched the bowl with its nose before drinking slowly. Relief washed through her. She sat back, hands resting on the floor, feeling the hum of the stove behind her. Her eyes drifted to the faint shimmer along the wolf's side. It appeared again, subtle but unmistakable, a light under the fur that pulsed gently with each breath. "What are you?" she said before she could stop herself. The wolf's ear turned toward her, as if it heard something deeper in the question than the words alone. Then it shifted its weight and tried to stand. Elena leaned forward quickly. "Wait, do not push yourself." The creature steadied but remained lying down, its gaze fixed on her in a way that made her heart tap faster. It was a look she did not know how to name. Not hunger, not fear, something aware, something searching. She felt that strange heartbeat echo again, brushing against her own pulse, aligning for the span of a breath before fading. She pressed a hand lightly to her chest. "This does not make sense," she murmured. The wolf let out a soft sound, not distress, more like acknowledgement. Elena drew a shaky breath. "All right," she said quietly. "If you were trying to tell me something, I am listening." Outside, the wind eased at last, and the cabin settled into a rare, gentle silence. Inside that stillness, the wolf lowered its head to the blanket, eyes drifting closed again. But its ears stayed alert, as if waiting for a moment that neither of them could yet name, a moment already humming through the air like a promise carried on its strange and steady heartbeat. Morning light finally broke through the thinning storm clouds, slipping in a soft band across the cabin floor. Elena stirred from where she had dozed, sitting upright against the sofa, her neck stiff, her breath shallow from the uneasy sleep. For a moment, she did not remember why she had fallen asleep on the floor. Then she saw the wolf. It lay exactly where she had left it, close to the stove, its massive frame curled slightly under the blanket. But something had changed. The faint shimmer beneath its fur was steadier now, pulsing gently with each rise of its chest. She rubbed her eyes. "Good morning," she whispered, unsure why she felt the need to speak softly. The wolf lifted its head, slow but deliberate, its pale eyes meeting hers with surprising clarity. The look held an awareness that made her heart skip, not out of fear, but recognition, as if the creature expected her to be there. She reached for the kettle and poured warm water into a tin mug. "I will check your temperature," she said, even though she had no real way to measure it except by touch. She dipped a cloth into the warm water, squeezed it gently, and knelt by the wolf's side. Her hand brushed its fur, and the warmth radiating from it was steady now, not feverish, not weak, just steady. A soft vibration traveled through her fingertips, almost like a quiet hum. That strange heartbeat brushed against her senses again, aligning with her own for a fleeting moment before settling back into its familiar pattern. The wolf watched her as she moved the cloth along its neck, its gaze following her with a patience she did not understand. "I do not know who you belong to," she murmured, "but you are not wild." Not completely. The creature blinked once, slow and deliberate, and Elena felt a strange pull in her chest, as if the silent gesture carried meaning. She set the cloth aside and stood, stretching her stiff legs. The storm had calmed, leaving only a thin veil of snowflakes drifting past the window. She walked to the door, cracked it open, and inhaled the crisp air. The forest was quiet, too quiet, as if the storm had pushed every sound into hiding. She looked back at the wolf. "I should gather wood while the weather is calm." The wolf shifted, pressing its paws against the blanket as if testing its strength. Elena stepped closer quickly. "No, do not get up yet. You still need rest." The creature lowered its head again, accepting her insistence. She felt another wave of relief. She pulled on her coat and boots, grabbed her gloves, and opened the door wide enough to step outside. The cold bit instantly at her cheeks. She gathered a few split logs from the covered rack beside the cabin, stacking them in her arms. As she turned, she paused. A line of unusual tracks pressed into the snow near the tree line. Not from a deer or fox. Not from anything she recognized. The prints were elongated, almost patterned, as if something heavy had stepped in a precise rhythm across the clearing. A faint shiver moved through her. She shut the door more quickly than she intended when she returned inside. The wolf lifted its head again, sensing her change in mood. She knelt beside it, her breath unsteady. "There was something out there," she whispered. The wolf's ears angled forward, listening. Its gaze held hers for a long moment, and in that silent exchange she felt the rhythm again, the quiet connection she still could not explain, a heartbeat matching hers for the span of several breaths before fading into the stillness of the cabin. Elena stayed very still beside the wolf, listening to the quiet rhythm of its breathing as the last traces of the storm melted into morning calm. The strange tracks outside lingered in her mind, each imprint pressed too cleanly into the snow, each step spaced evenly as if placed with intention rather than wandering. She touched her fingertips together, thinking through possibilities, none of which brought comfort. The wolf watched her with pale, alert eyes, sensing the unease she tried to hide. "I think something was looking for you," she said softly. The creature did not flinch. It simply held her gaze in a long, steady moment that made the hairs at the back of her neck rise. She moved to the window, pulling the curtain aside only a few inches to look toward the tree line. Nothing moved between the pines. The snow at the edge of the clearing shimmered in the cold light, untouched since she had shut the door. But the memory of those prints pressed on her like a whisper she could not quite catch. She let the curtain fall back into place and exhaled. "All right," she said quietly. "We should focus on getting your strength back." She returned to the wolf's side and placed her palm gently against its shoulder. The hum beneath its fur pulsed again, softer than before, but steady. The wolf leaned slightly into her hand, not enough to press weight, only enough to acknowledge the contact. It surprised her how natural it felt, as if she had done this before, as if the creature trusted her without hesitation. "You are warming up," she murmured. "That is good." She lifted the bowl of broth and brought it closer. The wolf drank again, slower this time, but with determination. She smiled faintly. "You are getting better." When the bowl was empty, the wolf lowered its head onto the blanket and closed its eyes. Elena watched the rise and fall of its breathing, the soft silver shimmer beneath its fur flickering with each inhale. She sat back and wrapped her arms loosely around her knees, letting her thoughts drift. Her life in the cabin had been quiet, almost too quiet. Days marked only by weather patterns, nights filled with the sound of wind or silence. But now, with a single creature at her feet, the cabin felt different. Less like a hiding place and more like a shelter with purpose. The wolf stirred again, lifting its head slightly, eyes opening to follow her movements. Elena leaned closer. "Do you need something?" The wolf blinked, then shifted its gaze toward the table near the door, where she kept her worn leather journal. She frowned. "You want that?" The creature held her gaze firmly. She stood slowly, crossed the room, and picked up the journal. It felt strange to bring it back to the wolf, but she did, placing it gently beside its paw. The wolf nudged the corner with its nose, then tapped the cover lightly, almost deliberately. Elena's breath caught. She had never seen an animal gesture like that. "Do you want me to open it?" she asked. The wolf blinked again. She flipped the journal open to a blank page. The creature lifted one paw, hesitated, then pressed it lightly onto the paper, leaving a faint imprint of shimmering fur, but no ink. Still, the meaning pressed into the moment as clearly as any written word. Elena looked into the wolf's eyes. "You are trying to communicate." The heartbeat she felt earlier brushed through her again, a quiet pulse that echoed hers for a brief, impossible moment. She touched the edge of the paw print on the page. "I do not know how," she whispered, "but I will listen. Whatever you are trying to tell me, I will listen." The wolf lowered its head, eyes steady, as if relieved she finally understood the first piece of a message waiting to be spoken. Elena kept her hand on the open journal, her fingertips brushing the faint imprint left by the wolf's paw. The mark shimmered lightly in the morning light, not with ink, but with a subtle glow rising from the paper, as if the creature's touch had left more than a physical impression. She looked at the wolf again. It watched her with patient focus, its pale eyes steady, almost expectant. "You are trying to tell me something important," she whispered. The heartbeat sensation flickered faintly in her chest, a soft echo that felt less like coincidence and more like guidance. The wolf shifted its weight carefully, lifting its head with slow, deliberate strength. Elena leaned closer. "Do you want another page?" The wolf gave the smallest nod, or something close enough to one that she felt a quiet certainty settle inside her. She turned the journal to the next blank sheet and laid it flat on the blanket. The creature extended its paw again, slower this time, pressing the pad gently onto the page. When it lifted its paw, the imprint shimmered just as before, but this time it pulsed, faint light moving across the shape in a rhythm that mirrored the heartbeat she felt earlier. Elena inhaled sharply. "This is not possible," she murmured, though part of her already believed it was. The wolf made a soft sound, more of a breath than a vocalization, but its meaning settled between them. She touched the glowing imprint with the tip of her finger. The moment her skin met the page, the pulse fluttered up her hand, warm and gentle, and for an instant she felt a rush of images she could not fully understand. Snow, a ridge, a distant tower, a sound like a horn carried through wind. She pulled her hand back, startled. The images vanished as quickly as they came, leaving only the quiet crackle of the stove and the wolf's calm breathing. She looked at it with wide eyes. "You showed me something," she said. "But how?" The wolf's gaze did not waver. It was not threatening, not wild. It was something deeper, carrying intelligence that made her throat tighten. She set the journal aside and sat cross-legged on the floor, facing the creature. "All right," she said quietly. "Tell me more. What do you want me to understand?" The wolf let out a slow, rumbling breath. Then slowly, carefully, it placed its paw over its own chest. Elena watched closely. The creature held its paw there for several seconds, then lifted it and pointed it gently toward her. The gesture was simple, but the meaning struck her like a warm wave. Her heart thudded. "Your heartbeat," she whispered. "You are telling me. Our heartbeats are connected." The wolf blinked once, a steady confirmation. Elena pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her pulse under her palm, then looked at the creature, noticing the subtle rise and fall of its breathing syncing for a moment with hers as if guided by an unseen thread. "Why?" she asked softly. "How could that be?" The wolf placed its paw on the journal again, tapping lightly, as if urging her to continue the strange exchange. She opened the next page with trembling hands. The creature leaned closer, placing its paw gently onto the new sheet. The imprint glowed once more, brighter than before. Elena reached out, hesitant but compelled, and touched the edge of the mark. Another rush of sensation flickered through her. This time not images, but something like a feeling, a sense of someone searching, a sense of urgency wrapped in calm purpose. When the sensation faded, the cabin fell into complete stillness. Elena looked into the wolf's pale eyes and whispered, "You are not here by accident." The heartbeat inside her answered with a quiet, certain pulse, as if the truth was already unfolding around her. Elena kept her hand on the newest glowing imprint, waiting for another rush of images or sensations, but this time nothing came. The mark pulsed once, softly, then dimmed back to a faint shimmer. The wolf watched her, its pale eyes following the rise and fall of her breath, as if measuring her reaction. She drew her hand back slowly. "You are searching for something," she said quietly. "Or someone." The wolf exhaled, a soft, steady sound that seemed to confirm her words. She closed the journal gently, her fingertips lingering on the warm cover. The faint hum beneath her skin faded, but the echo of the creature's heartbeat remained somewhere deep in her awareness, subtle but present. The morning light grew brighter, reflecting off the snow outside, sending thin beams across the cabin floor. The wolf shifted slightly, testing its strength again, but it did not try to stand. Instead, it turned its head toward the door, ears tilting as if listening to something beyond the reach of human hearing. Elena's pulse quickened. "Is it the thing that left those tracks?" she asked. The wolf did not look at her, but the tightening of its posture told her the answer. She stepped closer, lowering herself onto the blanket beside it. "You are not safe out there," she whispered. "And I do not think I am either." The creature's gaze flicked toward her, and for a moment their eyes held in a quiet, steady connection that made the room feel smaller, warmer, as though the world outside had paused to listen. She placed her hand gently against its shoulder, and the familiar hum traveled faintly up her arm. Not overwhelming, not alarming, simply steady, like a reassurance. The wolf leaned into her touch, barely, but enough to signal trust. A spark of courage settled inside her chest. "If something is coming for you," she said softly, "then we need to be ready. And I need to understand what you are." The wolf lowered its head and pressed its paw gently against her knee. She stilled. The gesture was deliberate, almost protective. A quiet moment passed before the creature lifted its paw again and tapped lightly on the floorboards, just once. Then it tapped again, a small pause in between. Elena frowned, listening carefully. 2 taps. A pause. A third, softer tap. A rhythm. She repeated the pattern gently with her fingers. 2 light taps. A pause. 1 tap. The wolf mirrored it, its pale eyes bright with recognition. "This is communication," she whispered. "You have a language." The wolf tapped again, altering the rhythm slightly, adding a longer pause and a softer final touch. Elena repeated it more slowly, feeling her way through the pattern. When she finished, something warm brushed her senses, not physical, more like a silent nod inside the air. She felt the connection deepen, not through images or glowing imprints this time, but through the steady cadence of shared rhythm. A soft knock of sound that was neither voice nor gesture, but something in between. The creature slowly leaned closer, pressing its forehead lightly against her forearm. She stilled, breath trembling, but she did not pull away. "I understand," she murmured. "Not everything, but the part that matters." The wolf's breathing calmed again, its body settling into the blanket as the warm glow from the stove filled the room. Elena placed her other hand gently on the creature's paw. "We will face whatever is coming," she whispered. Together, outside, the wind shifted, carrying a distant sound through the trees, faint but clear enough to make the wolf's ears rise and Elena's heartbeat quicken. Something was approaching, steady and purposeful, matching a rhythm she was only beginning to understand. The distant sound carried through the trees again, a low measured cadence that made the window glass tremble with each beat. Elena held her breath, her hand instinctively settling on the wolf's paw as if her touch could anchor them both. The creature lifted its head, ears angled sharply toward the forest, its pale eyes narrowing with a recognition she could not yet share. The rhythm outside did not belong to any animal she knew. It was too steady, too intentional, almost mechanical in its precision. The wolf shifted its weight, gathering enough strength to rise onto its front legs before stopping, breathing deeply as if the effort cost more than it revealed. Elena moved her hand gently along its shoulder. "Do not push yourself," she whispered. "You are not fully healed." The wolf looked at her, and in its eyes she saw a quiet apology, a tension between the instinct to protect and the reality of its weakened state. The rhythm outside grew clearer, each pulse vibrating faintly through the floorboards. Elena felt it echo against her ribs, brushing her heartbeat in a way that made her chest tighten. It was not threatening on its own, but it pulled at something inside her, a distant chord she did not understand. She moved to the window and eased the curtain aside just enough to see the tree line. The snow glittered under the pale winter sun. Nothing moved. No footprints broke the smooth surface. But the sound continued, steady and approaching. "It is close," she whispered. The wolf lifted itself a little higher, its breath steadying with effort, its gaze fixed on the window with an alertness that made her pulse quicken. Elena let the curtain fall back into place and knelt beside it. "What is it?" The creature lowered its head slowly and placed its paw over its chest, holding it there in a firm gesture. Then it moved that paw toward her and pressed it lightly against the floor near her knee. Her breath caught. "It is looking for you," she realized aloud. "Your heartbeat. Your presence." The wolf dipped its head once. A confirmation. Her stomach tightened. She knew now that the strange tracks in the snow had not been random. Something with purpose had been walking the edges of her clearing, searching. And the rhythm outside, the steady pulse, seemed to be answering the wolf's own faint hum. Elena touched her palm to her sternum, feeling her heart race beneath her hand. The creature watched her, its breathing growing more controlled, steadier, as if preparing for a moment it had been waiting for. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why is it tied to me?" The wolf lowered its paw onto her knee, a gentle grounding touch, and the familiar hum rose through her again, aligning for a brief second with the cadence outside. The connection settled deep inside her like a key turning in a hidden lock. A warmth spread through her chest, not uncomfortable, but undeniable. The sound outside grew louder, no longer distant. It was at the tree line now, its pulse vibrating lightly through the cabin walls. The wolf's eyes glowed faintly with a soft silver light, matching the shimmer beneath its fur. Elena felt her pulse match the rhythm outside for one breath, then another. Her voice trembled. "What is happening?" The wolf exhaled slowly, its gaze deepening with a truth it had not yet revealed. It placed its paw back over its heart and inclined its head toward her in a gesture of quiet acknowledgement, almost reverence. And in that silent exchange, Elena realized the approaching presence was not hunting the wolf. It was answering something in her, something the wolf had awakened, something the heartbeat had already claimed. The sound in the trees stopped all at once, leaving the clearing wrapped in a silence so complete that Elena felt her breath catch. The stillness pressed against the cabin walls like a held note suspended in cold air. The wolf lifted itself a little higher, its pale eyes fixed on the door with a clarity that bordered on recognition. A soft glow shimmered beneath its fur, rising like a quiet tide of silver light. Elena felt the hum inside her chest respond, a faint echo pulsing under her sternum. She pressed a hand there, stunned by how natural the strange rhythm had begun to feel, as if it had been waiting inside her all along. The wolf turned its head toward her, the movement slow but deliberate, and lowered its paw back to the floor. Then it bowed its head, not to the ground, but to her. The meaning rippled through her before she could question it. Reverence. Recognition. She whispered, "Why are you doing that?" The creature exhaled softly, and in that breath she sensed not weakness but acceptance. A quiet truth. The heartbeat outside resumed, softer now, no longer approaching but circling, as if whatever had come had found what it was seeking. Elena moved to the door, guided by an instinct she could not name. She unlatched it with slow, steady fingers and opened it enough for the cold air to sweep in. The clearing shimmered under the pale winter sun. Snowflakes drifted lazily. At the edge of the trees stood a figure, tall and faintly luminous, wrapped in silver light that pulsed gently with the same rhythm she felt in her chest. It did not step forward. It did not speak. It only bowed its head toward her in the same quiet gesture the wolf had offered moments before. Elena's breath trembled. The figure lifted one hand, palm open, revealing a faint glow pulsing in the center of its chest, a small steady light that matched the exact rhythm she felt beneath her own hand. She turned toward the wolf, her voice barely a whisper. "It is not here for you. It is here for me." The wolf held her gaze, its eyes softening with a mixture she could not name. Not sorrow, not fear, something closer to relief. Acceptance of something it had always known. A gentle warmth unfurled in her chest, not frightening, but profound. She stepped back from the doorway, giving space for the silence to settle again. The wolf used the moment to rise onto unsteady legs. Its form shimmered, the silver glow beneath its fur brightening as if responding to the presence outside. For a heartbeat, its shape blurred at the edges, not changing fully but shifting enough to suggest something beyond the form she knew. Something hidden, something royal in its quiet gravity. Elena steadied the creature with a gentle hand. "You came to me for a reason," she murmured. "You were never lost." The wolf touched its forehead lightly to her arm, a gesture so gentle it felt like a promise. Outside, the luminous figure bowed once more, deeper this time, as if honoring both of them. The wolf straightened, drawing from some quiet reserve of strength, and placed its paw over Elena's heart for a final moment. The hum inside her rose, warm and steady, answering the creature with a certainty that brought tears to her eyes. She whispered, "I understand." The wolf stepped back, eyes brightening with silver light, and Elena felt the truth settle inside her like the final note of a long-forgotten melody. The heartbeat that had guided her, the rhythm that had connected them, had never been a warning. It had been a calling. And in that quiet winter morning, in a cabin softened by snow and silence, she finally answered it.